morning from SA River Farming with the Omars.
So Peter's our little helper this morning for the moment. It's just a little sneak peek into what happens before shearing here on our farm. So this morning I'm going to actually start baking the snack food. So they have smokos, morning and afternoon tea, of which they have something decent to eat like sandwiches or pizzas or egg sandwiches, things like that. So more like a normal ordinary lunch. But they also like to have a cup of tea or a coffee with a few biscuits and a piece of cake as well. So I'm doing the biscuits and cakes at the moment, and I'll be able to show you more as to what happens in smoko when we begin shearing tomorrow. So just a little bit about us today. Eggs, and now I'm actually going to make two types of biscuits which are much the same. These ones are called cappuccino cookies and the other one is the chocolate cookies. A little bit like a shortbread, and instead of making it into biscuits I'm going to make it into a slice. It's just a little bit faster. I can cut it up to biscuit size after. Well, I'll also ice it though before that. I thought you might just like to see this. Does this look like a normal coloured egg? Because I don't think so. We have a couple of ducks on our farm, so we found their nest and have raided it because we can't have ducklings. We don't have a boy duck at the moment. So I have a combination of duck eggs, and here's a typical chicken egg. So when I'm baking, I will need to take that into consideration for their weight ratio. And this is the Isa Browns chicken eggs as well. So duck egg skins are definitely tougher. They're harder to crack open, so we're just a little bit more careful. One other thing that might interest you here is this. Living on a farm, we have, well, for the last few years we haven't grown our own wheat, but generally we did. So this is actually from a friend's farm and is organic wheat. We grind our flour into flour and we use it for many things. I always mix a ratio of at least 1/2 our ground plain flour with 1/2 self-raising flour, and everything I bake turns out well. If I feel, oh, there goes the flour. If I feel it's lacking a little bit, I'll just add a little extra baking powder just to give it that little bit more raising agent. So yeah, as you see me putting these things in, you'll understand where they're from and why they're used. As you can see, I'm using a Thermomix. I do love the Thermomix. It always creams butter and sugar in your vanilla essence, or in this instance, coffee, together really well. So I love it for that. It's just nice and creamy cakes, light, fluffy, and so I always use this for my basic mixing, and then I'll add the dry ingredients to it. Today I need to weigh the flour, so I'll weigh it now. Recipes, because shearing used to always, I used to find a little hard and challenging because you're feeding between 7 and 9 people. So it's a lot of food, and it's not just for a couple of days, it's generally for a good 5 days, sometimes 7 days, depending if we have 2 shearers or 3 shearers, which then means we either have 3 or 5 rouseabouts. So as years have gone by, it's been a lot better and a lot easier, because now that our family, there's 9 of us in our family, it's just like baking for us. I'm used to building or cooking in these larger quantities. So for instance, when I bake, I normally do 4 times what a recipe says, because then what I've made is going to last for several days, rather than biscuits, say, being all gobbled up in a couple of days. Or I can put a little bit in the freezer for an emergency. So at present, this recipe I'm just doubling because of the ratio for the butter. It's easy just to double. And same with the next recipe with the chocolate biscuits I'll do, but then I'll go back to doing my more traditional ways of baking and be doing quadruple amounts. So yeah, I'll finish weighing and get this together and get ready to put in the biscuit tray. So the dough was a little sticky, I didn't have quite enough flour in it, so I had a little trouble compressing it down to make it into a slice, but I got there in the end. So we're going to put it into the oven now and cook it for maybe 20 minutes or so till it's golden brown, and then bring it out. And now I'll start the next recipe. So chocolate slices all made, ready to go, and to put it in the oven now. And the coffee slice I was making is nearly ready. In it goes. So next on the menu is banana cake. So I always found it very hard to find a good recipe for banana cake. And finally I came across a recipe that it always works. So I've been very grateful for that. So every time we have brown bananas, the leftover bananas, I'll make this cake. So we'll make it for the shearers, and I'll be making, how many bananas do I have? 2, 4, 7, 8 bananas. This recipe uses 3 to 6, so I will double this recipe and make a big square loaf tin cake. Let's go. So again, using the Thermomix, I've now, instead of mashing the bananas, I put the Thermomix and I'll put it aside. I actually miscounted the bananas, there were 9, so I can triple the recipe. So what I'll do is make a big square cake like I planned. No, actually I won't. I'll put it in a big rectangle pan that I have. And then we'll, as cakes go, we'll cream the butter and the sugar, and then mix it all together, ready to pour into the tin. So 3 things down, there's I think at least 3 more things to go. I haven't actually counted how many things I'm baking. I got some choc chips because the packet broke, so Matthew kindly shared it out with us. Next is what is a recipe from a friend of mine when I got married. It's called Tall Boy biscuits, and they are so yummy.
It's one of my favourite biscuits.
Yeah, it's one of everybody's favourite biscuits. So they have salted peanuts in them, choc chips, so it's that sweet and salt kind of flavour that really makes them nice. So this is what we're making next. We cream, sugar and butter. It is a sticky recipe. We add oats and the choc chips and the salt, and it's just plain flour, which I actually really like because it means we can use all of our home ground flour in it. I don't need to use any refined flour at all. And it's a bicarb, and put it together as biscuits. I'll put them into biscuits. We'll roll them, flatten them, and then cook them in the oven. So let's get started. So we've done these Tall Boy biscuits now, see, all there ready to go in the oven. Go and cook them. We've enjoyed licking our fingers, it's so yummy. So yeah, Matthew made me a cup of coffee, which is actually getting cold, so I'm going to sit and drink it before it gets any colder, and then do some more baking. We're going to make the chocolate slice. I think I might have a look in the cupboard because I normally pre-mix things, and then I'm going to see what's in there and decide what else to bake, so we've got enough for the next week and a half. So this is this morning's baking. I only had a cup of coffee. We decided to have some lunch, so the tall boys have come out and some have already disappeared. We have our banana cake up here, and a chocolate biscuit slice, and a coffee slice. So these will be iced later on. And now I'm going to get on to the next lot of baking. Okay, so now we're up to part 2. So as I was explaining earlier, I do pre-mix it. So in here is a chocolate slice that we make, and I put the dry ingredients in and have written the wet ingredients that I need. William's just going to run and turn the grinder off. We just ground some more flour as you run out. And in here I've got ginger biscuits. So again, dry ingredients, and I've written down the extra details of wet ingredients and baking time. And sometimes what size tin. This is a large tin recipe, and these biscuits are a normal batch, seeing it's in a dry mix like this. So I'm going to start off with the chocolate slice, and then move on to ginger biscuits, and I might also try and make some chocolate chip biscuits. It takes a while to bake it all, so we'll just see how we go, but I will try and get it all done before afternoon tea. Here we go. So here we go, is the chocolate slice all ready to go in here. And we pour. This is a nice thin chewy slice, this one, the kids love. I hope the shearers will love as well. And even if the shearers don't like it, I know the kids will because they're working there too. Just stirring the ginger biscuits together now. They're coming along nicely. We'll just combine it together and then roll them out to biscuits. As you can see, it's come together now. It is quite a runny dough when it's first put together. So with the ginger biscuits, I actually leave it aside maybe for 5 or 10 minutes. And then it stiffens, and then it's easy to put on the baking trays, and you can also roll them then. Well, like this, you can't. And I find they turn out nicer then. So I'll put it aside and I'll start making some chocolate chip biscuits. Thing for today. So now it's finally decided to roll out properly, which is really nice, and everything else in the oven will be cooked. So all that's left for me to do is to clean up and then ice the cakes. And then regarding shearing, or particularly putting things into containers ready for them to eat, and some things in the freezer, so it's also fresh for this week and next week. So yes, I'll finish off here, clean up, and then I'll show you a little of what it looks like when everything's iced and ready to go for shearing. So here's all our baking finished. Everything is iced. Some things are already packaged for tomorrow and the next day, and some things will go in the freezer. There's some very good helpers over there. And others will escape. So yes, so they're all things we cooked today, and I'm hoping that'll last us for the week of shearing. But I have a feeling it won't, and I'll need to bake a little more. So till tomorrow, and we start looking at what a day of shearing is like.